Okay, in this video I'll be focusing on more depth about the overall team building and the battle mechanics. If you are looking for the general team building and beginner's guide, you can click the card above or check it from my channel. But back to the team building, the first thing that I want you to know is the way for you to discern about the character elements and classes. It is pretty simple, all you have to do is just to press this filter button, but as simple as it sounds, this is the only way for you as a new player to know what the character class and element are, because tap and holding their icon won't do anything. By knowing this, it will also help you when you are trying to craft a specific elemental gear later on. Their skill color also shows you what element their skill is. For example, this old man wields two elements, red for fire, blue for ice. And why is this important? Because this old man can also give debuffs to the enemy that amps both fire and ice damage. So knowing what element your character has will help you in forming the right team. For example, here my core DPS is Resna. She deals fire damage, and this old man amplifies her damage further thanks to the debuffs he provided. And in the process, it also amps his own damage, so it is a win-win situation. But there are also characters that can provide neutral damage amp, and she is one of them. So make sure to check their skills first before you're forming a team. Now that you already know about the elements, let's move into the character classes and the real team building. I've already mentioned this before in my beginner's guide, but in this game, the way for you to break the enemy's defense is by breaking their defense bar. Upon breaking the enemy's bar, they will be put in a weakened state, and in this state, if you put the right memoria, gear and trait, you can deal more damage to them. Doing this will also move their turn, which will be important in just a bit. But to do this, you need a breaker class in your team. The reason I didn't explain each class in this game was because to me, aside from the healer, there are only two important classes, and that is striker and deathbreaker. I'm not saying that the other classes are bad, but it is just not as important as these two. You really can't separate a deathbreaker and a striker. The two are bound to be together, because without a deathbreaker, your striker won't deal much damage, and without a pure striker, your deathbreaker will just deal a so-so damage. Now, later on you will be faced with a lot of enemies, and if you don't bring a deathbreaker or running a full striker, then that is the same way as asking the enemy to hit your team freely. And this is why the existence of deathbreaker is so important, to give your slow striker a chance to get their turn. The ideal team building for me is to have 2 or 3 deathbreaker, followed by 2 or 1 core DPS, and lastly a healer. You can experiment about this yourself and you can find what works for you. Just remember to bring a deathbreaker in the team. Now team building is done, let's talk about the game mechanics. In this game, the way for you to use burst or ultimate is kinda determined in a way, but by breaking the enemy's bar and skipping their turn, you also move the burst or ultimate turn to someone else. This is the same with the damage increase that is indicated by blue icon and the red one for the damage dealt reduction. To me, this game isn't that auto-friendly because the auto kinda sucks, but at the same time, I found it fun because the battle mechanics is fun. This prompts you to use strategy on how to manage the tide of the battle. Breaking the enemy's bar will change the turn. Using an item will also change the turn. Using a basic attack will also change the turn. Defeating an enemy will also change the turn. And so with this in mind, take it to your advantage to ride the battle's tide.